Hello and welcome to Collaboratory, the show where Mike Morris improvises an animatic with the little help from our audience, and we learn about the craft of storyboarding along the way. This is an improv art stream that runs on audience suggestions. Mike, what kind of prompts are we looking for from the audience? Are we looking for characters? Are we looking for settings or conflict? Feel free to jump in with your suggestion. Whatever you type might show up on screen.
You know, Alyssa, we're looking for all three of those things. So welcome back, everybody. We're so glad to have you here and do a little bit of improv storyboarding. So yeah, characters, setting, conflict, and then we can get going on a new collaboratory story. So, but Alyssa, you are our guest host for today. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? Like, who is Alyssa?
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm currently an art director and environment supervisor based in Vancouver, British Columbia, up in Canada. Upon completing my double degree in fine arts and computer science in New Zealand, I began my career as a production illustrator and designer in the art department for film and television productions across New Zealand and Australia nearly 20 years ago. So I'm definitely old. And since then, I've worked on films and series such as the latest one was The Acolyte, the new Star Wars franchise. Worked on HBO's Last of Us, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Game of Thrones, Jurassic World, Prometheus, The Chronicles of Narnia, to name a few. So that's about it, really. What about you, Mike?
Is that all? Gee. Huh. Gosh. Yeah, I make cartoons. That's just what I do.
Cartoons make people happy.
So, Alyssa, coming from like a background like environment and some more of a design aspect, how do you think that's sort of evolved over time? I know because like a lot of I see a lot of concept drawings from like older shows. You know, you see like the Art of Star Wars from back in '77 with Ralph McQuarrie and some of those awesome guys, to like Doug Chang and some of the people in like the prequels, and then later on you see some of the and Ian McKay. We have to mention Ian because he's awesome. And then you know, you see this stuff sort of progress. How has the process sort of progressed for you, and how does that integrate with like storytelling?
I think it has progressed definitely in its own ways. You know, back in the days, I'm saying about 20 years ago, Photoshop existed, but we actually did not jump into Photoshop directly. We actually do a lot of drafting, so a lot of drawing on paper, working in the team environment. You know, some person might be designing, say, the cockpit of a spaceship. Another person may be designing the landing gear, for example. So it was more like a collaboratory spirit.
Collaboratory.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
It was basically that sort of like teamwork spirit that I saw more when I was working back then. Nowadays, everything seems to be very CG based, you know, like, so artists are more individual, like a lone wolf, I would call it, one person design all. And then sometimes concept artists or production designers, they don't even have a knowledge who is in their team. You know, this becomes a very large scale kind of like environment, right? So I have worked on productions where I don't even know who was in my team. You know, like there's so many different people there in the art department. Some are designing the props, some, you know, designing characters, some designing costumes, for example. So it has definitely becoming more like, how do you call it? Categorized. Is that the word?
Yeah, sure. I could see that. You know, and Alyssa, we've talked a lot about, you know, just in our own conversations about independent animation.
Yeah.
Which is the theme for this month's Collaboratory, is independent animation, and how people can start doing something of their own with the modern tools that they've got. I feel like Storyboard Pro especially is so good to just get something down and into a format where it's a visual exploration, at least, of something.
Yeah.
Lately, I mean, we've seen a couple of these examples, just talking about stuff. People being able to do these very short TikTok-y, YouTube short, kind of under 60-second little bits of animation in like almost a storyboard layout type film.
Yeah.
And I think, do you think that we should see more of that short form content?
Of course, I definitely should, am vouching for that as well, because I feel like people are so focused on the long form content, they forgot that you can tell meaningful stories in just 60 seconds, for example. I used to have a challenge that tell a story with 12 panels, that kind of things, exercise that we used to do when we were at school, although I'm not an animator or storyboard artist, but, when you go through school, you have that sort of challenges and exercises, right? Like, how do you tell a story? Here's the conflict, here's a character, how do you tell compelling stories? And then not only that, I remember when I was at school, they used to be like target audiences. How do you tell the same stories to a 5-year-old kid versus a teenager and versus adult? That sort of exercises retrain your creativity and how you can tell a story. A 5-year-old may perceive a story differently than someone like me, right? So it does take a lot of creativity juice happening up there to make that happen. And I feel like we don't see a lot of those practices anymore, those exercises happening anymore. I don't know, like, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, having done some lectures recently in various places, talking about, like, I went and did a speech not long ago at Game Fest in Tashkent City, and the artists there are so eager to learn and so eager to get started. But in my talk, like, I sort of adapted some of the stuff that I had spoken about at IMAG last March in Paris, and I had to like take all of that stuff that I was going to talk about and sort of simplify it down a little bit for people who were more like early students, like that. Instead of like seasoned professionals that wanted to take a really deep dive, you had to kind of simplify it down but still keep that same like core of content. So I think that sometimes you have to like tailor the simplicity of the concepts that you're portraying to the audience that you're trying to reach out to. Obviously, if you're working on a preschool show, that's going to be a lot more simplistic than it will be like, some crazy, drama show about, hunting vampires or some sort of like, crazy fighting cop show or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like a lot of this can be fostered, like, for example, I learned so much from my team. Like, it could be a junior artist, it could be a veteran artist, but it's just the openness of learning from everyone in the team. It's super important. My way of storytelling may be very different from the person sitting next to me, for example. And that's why I find like collaboration, working in a team, is so refreshing sometimes, right? Especially during this time of change. Right. So we have a lot of people kind of transitioning from 2D to 3D, or people transitioning from 3D to back to old school 2D animation. Right. And I myself finding on the fence, because I have been doing 2D first and then transition into 3D. Now I'm on the fence, like thinking I want to do a hybrid of 2D and 3D together. So
of course. And I think those kind of experiments are happening more and more. Recently, a friend of mine who is a cutout animator with Harmony and which also has a 21-day trial for all of you animators out there. But he recently, approached me and said, what can I do to improve my animation skills? Like, I want to take it a step further. And I said, well, if you want to go up, you got to go back in time to the old school, get out some paper, get out pencils, get out a light table, and start going with that sort of stuff. Like get back down to basics. And it was almost like, like a Rocky montage or one of those, like, when you see it like start creating. Because I said, dude, you know what? It may sound trite and it may sound like you've done it 100 times, but get that bouncing ball going. Get the bouncing ball exercise happening. And he's like, yeah, gosh, I didn't realize, like when he finally finished it. And he showed me a couple of ones and I'm like, well, right now the ball looks self-motivated. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, it looks like it's bouncing on its own, not just bouncing. Like the weight and the gravity of things isn't quite right. It's like going about and then bouncing up really fast, like it's bouncing on its own.
Yeah.
And that's not the assignment, right? And so he went through and like adjusted things and everything. And now he has gone through a couple of different exercises and is like, oh my gosh, I am so addicted to this because my drawings, I feel like they feel alive. And that's how they get you. That's how those animators get you.
Yeah. Like I said, though I'm not an animator, I find that exercise actually inspire me to be a better storyteller too. Especially when I'm writing my own contents, right? My own IPs, my own short films, like I'm actually very curious how animators actually animate, from my line of basically script. I said, how do you interpret it? There's so many different ways, right? You have to think about the mood, the poses, is it supposed to be a lighthearted or something serious? It's all in the animation. And I found myself like picking up my iPad with the Procreate. You could kind of do like a ghetto animation. I'm not an animator, so that's just how much knowledge I know. And
yet you're not an animator yet.
Not an animator, but
we'll get you eventually.
But I really love getting involved in animation because it taught me so much about how to adapt to my story, right? Like just for example, the current short film I'm working on, I have changed so many things based on what I see on the edit. Like this could be more expressive, or it could be a little bit more sadder. It could be happier, that kind of thing. It just changes things, even though it's a speech-free short film. The action and the poses and the expression of the character tells so much, right? Yeah, that's the key to storytelling. I've read so many books about storytelling, and I'm just like, wow, this is really fascinating.
Yeah, there's no teacher better than experience. So, and just getting your hands in there and just starting up. Speaking of characters, though, what do we have from our chat?
Yes, what do we have? Let's see. Do we have anything?
Because we're looking for characters, we're looking for setting, and we're looking for conflict.
Where do I find the chat again? It's here, right?
You gotta check the Slack.
I'm not.
Our producer Janelle, who's hidden, but is a lovely person, is sending you everything via the Slack channel.
Yeah, I haven't actually received a character or a setting yet, but I could be wrong. Let me just ping her.
Going back to this idea of like independent animation, and I know we've talked about this at length. The idea of artistic validation, right? So, when you're in school and you're working on things, you're trying to get good, right? Like the goal is to improve your skills and get better. And sometimes you feel like you don't know anymore when you get too close to it, right? You kind of don't know anymore if your stuff's good or if it's not, or if like, you're missing something. And I think a lot of people turn to like external validation in a lot of ways, especially from like studios and things like that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, if I got into the studio, then I know I'm good. Then I know it. You know, I don't have to guess about it anymore.
Mhm.
And so what do you think about that, as opposed to like just basically telling your insecurities to go take a hike and just keep going on what you're doing?
Yeah, I feel like that is actually very true. Like when I look back at myself, my younger selves, you know, like that's what I aim to do. You know, I want to work for Weta Digital or Weta Effects now. I wanted to work for ILM. I wanted to work for all these big studios. I think it's just, you're right, it's for validation. If I could get into those doors, that means I'm good enough to work for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think people fail to understand that, you know, sometimes hiring process is you have to be there at the right time, right? It's
Sure.
harsh
Timing
to
is
say that.
really
Timing
important.
is everything. It's harsh to say that, not to burst anyone's bubble. You could be very good at your art, but sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you wouldn't get in the door because I hired someone else, right? So how I tell my students is, don't use that as a validation that, okay, I got in, finally got in, that means I'm good. And when you think about that way, you start to lose track on what you want to improve because you're already comfortable, you know? This is kind of like, it's kind of like a, what do you call it? Unconscious thing you do. I find myself do that all the time. Like, oh, I managed to get on the show. The most recent thing that I found myself doing was like, okay, I've worked on all these big shows. That means I'm good. I don't need to practice anymore. But then I woke up one day, I said, no, I need to practice because I need to get better. It doesn't mean that, you know, because I work on all these shows, I work on different companies, means that I'm good. It means that I have so much more to learn about what I didn't, you know, achieve or did not work on. Right. And that's why I'm telling you earlier just now that I'm tossing between the fence of doing complete 2D animation or full CG, because I feel like that is the gray area that I need to learn most, right? I know 3D, I know 2D, but how do you actually make a 2D and 3D movie? Nobody knows. So
there's people that know.
You know, so you can teach me.
There's people that know. It's not easy, but
it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Very meticulous, in fact.
It is.
There is a series of tutorials that Sergio Pablos Animation released that you can find on YouTube.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they're talking about is the 2D and 3D, you know, you can do within the Toon Boom software. So get that 21-day trial, people, because you can do 2D in the 3D environment fairly easily in the softwares. Yeah, it's always an interesting thing to realize that, you know, you can do it. You can tell stories. You can make art, and just sometimes you have to live with the uncomfortability of not getting validation all the time if you want to go on an independent route, right? And then of course there's always the validation or the detractors on the other side of it, on like YouTube or some place where you publish, you know, your artwork.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to be a truly independent artist, you kind of have to galvanize yourself against validation. Like that you don't necessarily need it, but you have to be humble enough to realize that there are things that you don't know about making art yet, and you keep progressing and you keep improving without necessarily the need for somebody to tell you you're good, you know?
100%. And that's why independent animation is the key, you know, is the way to go, because it teaches you to be bold. It teaches you to be different, right? And stop comparing yourself with, you know, like the product of a larger studio with infinite amount of budget. You know, that's why I love independent filmmakers, because I look at their style, look at the way to tell the story. It's very different, you know, it's very different from the mainstream. And I think that's what we need, you know, the variety out there. So we do have a couple of questions and a bit of a, not question, actually. We do have a couple of ideas for you. So
sweet.
A story about a teen who wants to go to a concert in outer space, a futuristic genre setting maybe, Or we have another idea. What about a hunter character in a forest at night with nothing but a fire torch, thinking that he has some sort of unknown beast, only to realize he's being watched by a beast all the time?
Okay, let's go back to the first one. Let's process these. We have the first one, somebody who wants to go to a concert in space, but they're like stuck on a planet. Is that what I'm getting?
I assume so. It says like a teen who wants to go to a concert in outer space, a futuristic genre setting. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's just a character in a setting, but there's no conflict.
So I think, okay. You know what? One of the things that we like to do in the Collaboratory is combine those ideas.
Yeah.
So what if we have a character in a futuristic setting? So what if we do like, all right, let's get out our markers right here, and let's start. You know, we'll start drafting up a little, you know, futuristic looking space, right? And I'm kind of, you know, patterning this off like the Eiffel Tower and the Space Needle.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have like some very futuristic looking buildings. And I'm going to go back to the stage view right now so we can kind of get a big, large overview of things that we can do and have like, you know, some sort of like dome-ish type building. Sometimes with some of the markers, especially high texture ones, we tend to stutter a little bit. So if marker things are just sort of appearing, you know why. So we have like, let's do like a second tier of that, and maybe like up here, and then like some other stuff. So we have like a city, and maybe we have like, you know, some sort of a foreground element there over it, as my, you know, computer sort of spins a little bit, thinking about the marks I'm making. And then we go from this, you know, futuristic type thing, and we can kind of put that down into the thirds. What if we go to like our camera pans over to a person who is just kind of like looking over the entire thing from a more forested area. Forested area?
Forested area with some sort of alien beast lurking around.
Yeah, he's trying to get to a concert and is being stalked by an alien beast. So let's put, you know, we're trying to give a little bit of space in here between the camera move to actually get you know, a nice camera move in there.
Yeah. There's also another idea from a participant, 2 sewer rats fighting over a piece of food. Maybe you can use that as a transition between the pan.
You know, that might be something that we could integrate, actually. Yeah, you know, so I think that we could do something like this where we've got, you know, some and the outskirts of what this you know, town would be, maybe right here in the middle. Or actually, what if, my computer wasn't responding there for a hot second. I might need to go off of my fancy markers for a minute and go to something a little bit less textured, just for the sake of speed. And by the sake of speed, I'm talking about the Keanu Reeves movie, of course. Of course, as one does. Maybe what we're seeing right here in the distance of, you know, this area here, it's got some forested type, you know, plateau that somebody's looking off of. we see that there's, you know, like a spaceport on the outside of town.
Yeah.
And we see like, you know, liftoffs and things going on right here. Maybe, you know, instead of the classic tower, we have more of like a SpaceX type launching pad, you know, and like a tower like right here or something like that. Some sort of you know, platform or something that sees, you know, futuristic ships launching. And then we have our guy up here. So about this character, you say a teen.
A teen.
But I think we need a description of said teen. I mean, who is this teen that we are talking about? Or is it alien, human? Like, what kind of teen is this? Because, I mean, that's kind of a general thing, you think?
Half human, half android.
Cyborg?
A cyborg. That could be interesting.
And I think we can put the actual. We're gonna do a little salt shaker person for a minute here, and we'll just put them right here. Maybe even make them a little smaller. No, I like the other size better. So we at least get the sense that they're, you know, in the environment a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe not prominently, but in the environment in a meaningful way. So let's get some more trees and maybe some more, you know, foliage on this particular area. Can even break up. Well, no, we don't want to put anything right here between here, because then that would visually kind of mess things up a little bit, I think.
Right.
But we can poke a couple of foreground trees up a little bit more, and this solves a couple of things. We want to be able to fill the space so this place feels nice and forested without necessarily having to draw a billion trees, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Now, while you're drawing, let's talk about the process of storyboarding, because I believe that some people might be very interested in how a storyboarder goes through a day in production. So what does a typical day of storyboarding looks like during production for you?
It really depends on the day. You know, different days hold different events. And by the way, audience, we're still looking for a description of that teen that wants to go to the concert. Different days have different things in store. So like you'll have like a kickoff, right? So if you're a hired storyboard artist at a studio and it's time to start working on a storyboard, generally you'll have a kickoff meeting that sort of describes what's going on in the show. You should have read the script already. If it's a scripted show, or if it's an outline, you should have read the outline. And you show up prepared, essentially, after having done your due diligence. Afterward, you will get what's called a brief, or, you know, in some cases, they'll just hand you a script and say, you have act 1 or you have sequence, you know, 5 through 7 or whatever it is. And then the director generally will, you know, say, well, I have thoughts about this, this, and that. So if you can, you know, deliver those things for me, that would be fantastic. So that's a lot of what happens in those meetings is the director will give you, well, I have a specific vision for this part, but not this part. Please give me some stuff. You'll go back and you'll spend some time doing thumbnail drawings, right? These little teeny nothing stick figure drawings, and then come back in a week or 2 weeks, depending on the schedule, and pitch it to the director. And then they'll have, ideas and have changes and some of that stuff that they'll want to do themselves, as far as tempering your performances, or making sure that the beats that should be hit are getting hit. And I say the story beats, I mean story beats, like the particular story moments that need to be displayed. And then after you get that sort of feedback from your director or the supervising director, in some cases, then you'll go into the revisions and cleanup phase. So you'll do thumbnail drawings, and then you'll do rough drawings, and then in some cases you'll even do like nice cleanup drawings. And it's an evolving process over time. It's very iterative, and it's sometimes a little grueling, especially if you have like a lot of moving parts in a scene or a sequence.
For sure. So we have 2 suggestions: Beast Red and a Cyborg Teen.
Cyborg Teen. Okay.
Beast Red.
And what?
A Beast Rat.
And a Beast Rat. Okay, cool. Let's see. I am going to share this drawing. And by sharing the drawing, I'm going to copy the selected layer, and I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to delete that layer, and then I'm going to paste it. So I shared the drawing because I want to maybe specify a couple of things. I'm going to come in here and do a little bit of cleanup. I'm just going to use a basic vector brush, and then we're just going to define this area just a little bit more than what we have, because I feel like it's a little bit undefined at the moment. Holding down Shift, I can draw straight lines very easily. And that's really helpful when it
reminds me of the Jetsons.
Yeah?
The Jetsons, my favorite childhood cartoon.
Meet George Jetson. Yeah, the Jetsons, are otherwise known as Flintstones in space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotta love that Hanna-Barbera stuff, right?
100%. So, Mike, what surprised you the most when you started working as a storyboard artist?
What surprised me? I guess, there's no, you can't just draw what you like.
Mm.
I think that's kind of what surprised me the most, is you're so used to just drawing the stuff that you like and that you know how to draw well, or whatever your favorite things, whether it be robots, or kaiju, or some sort of superheroes or whatever like that, and depending on the show, sure, you get to draw some of that stuff, but sometimes you'll have to do things, and I mentioned this on the show before, that I am not great at drawing cars. And so, when you have to do stuff involving people driving in cars, or, otherwise interacting with cars, or in some cases a car chase, stuff like that, it was oh, well, crap, I don't know how to do this well. Hopefully I can pull it off.
That's the whole thing about us having to constantly learn, right? Our skills doesn't just stop. Our experience and our learning doesn't just stop when you got the job.
Yep. Now you got to keep the job.
Now you got to keep the job, and advancing with this technology, we talk about it a lot offline before. And so how do you see the future of independent animation evolving with the advancement of technology, let's say from 3 to 5 years' time? Since we are seeing a lot of changes now.
I think we're seeing the generation of different tools that will enable artists to do things more independently without the need for necessarily large studio involvement. Studios are really great at being able to gather people together and all work on a project, right? Some studios are really great at even retaining artists to work on multiple projects over extended periods of time, right? Oftentimes, though, when you're working on some of these shows, as exciting and exhilarating as that can be, sometimes you just want to work on something that you want to work on.
Yeah.
Some sort of artistic expression of your own that has nothing to do with the studio. And as fun as it can be to work in that studio environment, eventually you'll hit a point where it feels a little less fulfilling, because you just want to do that expression that's burning inside of you, you know?
Yeah.
And
you
so
know what
that's where
I call that a mid-career crisis.
Because, like, you know, I feel like once you get kind of your you know, your legs under you, your first taste of the professional work environment, right? Then you'll be yearning to produce something that is uniquely your own.
Yeah.
And thankfully, in this day and age, we have people that are making the tools to do so. You know, for instance, Storyboard Pro is an excellent example. I've done stuff for storyboards in other various softwares, and it's taken me so much longer a lot of the time than it ever did with Storyboard Pro. I can do things really fast, easily, and quickly with Storyboard Pro that I, you know, couldn't necessarily do in other software packages, right?
So you're basically focusing on more the creative tasks and storytelling than trying to fight with the software. Basically, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and fighting, you never want to have to fight with your software. You never have to want to, like, you know, go through a billion steps to do the one simple thing that you're looking to do. And I feel like a lot of times that, you know, we sort of inadvertently get caught in that kind of thing with a lot of stuff. But, you know, I've been very fortunate to work with Toon Boom for some time now. And, you know, Storyboard Pro is my jam. So.
Sounds good. So we have another update. The cyborg is going to be the cyborg metal head teen who has long hair and a shirt with a skull, big eyes, small mouth, long arms, short legs, on wheels for feet.
Well, all right. Okay.
That sounds like a very cool character, though. I think it's supposed to be short legs, not short legs.
Short legs.
Short legs, yeah.
I think for ease of drawing, we might not do the short legs. But I think the long arms is interesting, and the wheel feet. I think that's very interesting. Okay, so let's just make that little platform happen here, and let's get this going on. All right. So we're watching launches from the local spaceport. And let's get this character. Oh, we've got some. Punker, right? That's what we said?
Punker, yeah. Definitely a metalhead. With a
metal
metalhead with a t-shirt with a skull and has long hair.
Okay. What if we literally do a part metal head?
Oh.
With, like,
wires coming out?
Yeah.
And the punk, like those antenna rods.
Yeah. With, like, little lights or something on the end. And then we'll have like
one of those long bendy arms, like Bender.
yeah, abnormally long arms. And then we won't necessarily see the feet right away. Let's do, yeah, some like skinny jeans type pants with like maybe a sash type belt. Yeah, I think we can do these. Let's do 5 of them. All right, let's see. Let's delete that. And then we'll grab this, copy it, and go back to here. We've got some things on that level, so we'll take that off. Oops. And we've got all of this that's on the wrong level. So let's get rid of that, and we'll put it here. Another little trick you can do if you have some lines that are supposed to be in front but aren't in the front, you can just bring them to front by arranging them. So if you go to Arrange, Bring to Front, in my case, I've set it up so it's Control Shift and Page Up. Now oops, I selected the wrong thing. So now all the lines that you want on the top are on the top. Because there are different colors, right? So you can set that up fairly easily. I'm just going to do a quick little thing on the forest.
So for those people who are not familiar with Storyboard Pro, would you recommend it to a beginner artist?
Yes, absolutely. I would recommend it to anybody that likes to draw and likes to tell stories, because that's exactly what this is for the storytellers. And let's do draw behind and fill, and we'll pick a nice little color, and then we'll just fill it in. I would recommend Storyboard Pro to anybody that is into telling stories, because that's what it's for. It's for making stories. It's for building up ideas and making them go from just an idea to a certain semblance of reality.
Yeah. I'm definitely a visual person. I'm not like a reading a script type of person. And that's why whenever I make a short film, it starts with doodles just on Post-its.
Good.
That's just how I do it. And then you piece
That's
them all together and you put them into written script. I think writing script is the hardest one for me because I'm not that expressive in terms of using words.
Sure. And when you're doing stuff visually, I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the old storyboard process, like from like the old Disney days, right? You had all of these people that they're as far as I know, there wasn't a lot of script writing. It started with drawings, drawings of, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves or I'm not sure about the Prince Ahmed movies from, Lottie Reininger, or how she planned out anything. But in the old, Disney stuff, it was all drawings. You'd see drawings of like, Dumbo and various sequences or things like that, but there wasn't a lot of script that I've seen.
Yeah.
So maybe they had a lot of that kind of stuff, but I mean, I wouldn't have known it.
Yeah, recently I've seen a lot of like young artists embracing the 2D animation now, and even on Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of like short clips, like three minutes long. Sometimes it's not even 3 minutes, 15 seconds long, and like the one that you showed me a couple of days ago. Like, was it from TikTok? Some guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wizard. That was actually
I think so.
cool.
It was from YouTube, I think, but I'm sure it's on TikTok.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. Like we need to see more contents like this. I think this is very cute. It's full of expression, and the storytelling was great. You look at it and you instantly know how this character is feeling at that moment in time. And I think having software like Storyboard Pro can definitely enhance that a lot. It makes it so accessible, to story writers and storytellers to quickly come up with a story to see if it works. If it doesn't work, you can just quickly erase it and start all over again. It's not like the old days when you have to throw that piece of paper in the trash can and start all over again.
Yeah.
And what are you trying to do now, Mike?
Well, I think we're going to switch the shot and see this character looking longingly at the launch.
Because he missed it.
I think she missed it.
She missed it. Oh.
We'll do a classic Jimbo Jones. Sure.
And share with us, Mike, how do you develop a unique and compelling visual storytelling techniques?
Time and experience.
The two most important ingredients.
Well, I mean, everybody's going to have influences, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to have influences of things that we like and things that we don't. And sometimes influences will happen from shows that we're on, other people that we interact with, stuff that we like, stuff that we like to watch. Like some people are really into, classic Disney. Some people are into Warner Brothers. Some people are into anime. And those, will kind of flavor your artistic styles, I think. I hate to, see people just focus on doing that, though, and not explore any of their own point of view. But I think, again, that comes a time, and that comes with knowing like what kind of artist you are.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll have to, take a little bit of time and think about what you like and what kind of storytelling techniques that you like to employ.
Yeah, so you're speaking basically from your perspective as an independent storyteller, an independent filmmaker, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have influences, and we all have some sort of dependence on, what we see in life. But I would love to see people like pull from their own experiences and pull from their own lives, rather than just looking at movies and like copying the movies.
Right. Yeah, which we see a lot lately. Like a lot of I'm not gonna say that there's no originality, in that sense. Like I treat it as like a master study when you do fan arts or a copy from a still from a movie, right? Those are equally as important for you to progress as artists, because we all have done that when we went through school. Find a still image that you like and try to recreate it, right? So in terms of
and I think that sort of master study is absolutely warranted.
Yeah.
Like I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, but it can't be the only thing you do.
Yeah.
Like it can't be the only type of inspiration that you have or are willing to entertain.
That's right. So from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges of producing independent animation compared to working in a larger studio?
I think a lot of it comes down to financial.
Financial, yep, 100%.
Because, I mean, people got to eat, right? And so a lot of the time, the independent animation, you know, you have to figure out a way to fund it because, again, eating and having a place to live and equipment. So that is one of the major hurdles. I think the other is motivation and being able to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Persistent and diligent in working on it and just keep going. Like you have to be very, you have to be very motivated.
Yeah, 100%. I think being motivation is the key when working on independent animation, because you have good days and you also have a lot of bad days too when things don't work out, right? So I feel like for my experiences, when I have a bad day, I just decided that day I'm going to take a day off because there's no point of beating a dead horse. I think that's the saying. And when you take a break and you return the next day, you have a different outlook. And kind of like, I don't know, for some reason, magical reason, it usually solves my problems for me, you know, because maybe I have a clearer mental state, you know, at that point to make a decision how to move on the next or how to solve a particular technical or creative problems, right?
Yeah.
And what are some of the common misconceptions about independent animation that you've seen?
I don't know. I mean, misconceptions. I don't know what misconception you could necessarily have about it. Well, maybe a misconception would be that it's a luxurious path, that you can go down it and be like, yeah, I'm rolling deep, yo, or whatever. But I think that, you know, here's a misconception. Independent animation is impossible. You shouldn't try.
Exactly.
I think that is definitely a misconception because it is possible. It just is a matter of doing it. But I'm also a big proponent of if you want to do it, do it. Like you don't need permission. You don't need anybody to tell you you can or can't.
Yeah.
You just do it because you want to do it. And darn it, no one's going to stop you from doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think also one of the common misconceptions I've heard is like from people that I've been talking to is whenever I tell them that I want to make my own animation project or a film project, people always assume that I'm loaded with money. I was like, no, that's not the case. I don't have any money. You know, like there are a lot of organizations these days that fund independent filmmakers, like fundings. And I've seen a lot of people making some very, very nice animation products or film products out of Kickstarter, for example. So there are so many different ways to fund your independent project. And I think, you know, like having a platform like a Kickstarter or even sponsors from some software company, you know, like I've seen it a lot more happening lately. And I don't see there's a reason why people shouldn't try it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you should try it at least once. I think that everyone should make their own film at one point.
Even if it is just 5 seconds long, right?
Yes.
One launch remain. Right, here's a question for you. How do you approach revisions and feedback from directors or clients?
Well, the first thing, you can't take it personally. You are in service to the client. You are in service to the project, right? You cannot get offended. You cannot, get down on yourself if it's not exactly perfect the first time. and you sort of develop a thick skin a lot of the times, I feel like, just in your approach to being good at taking feedback. Because, you know, oftentimes it's not about, you know, it's not about your skills, it's about what's necessary for the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sooner you get more comfortable with, you know, throwing things out and changing things, and you know, as they say in the business, you know, killing your darlings, the better off that you will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, storyboard drawings are supposed to be disposable. They're supposed to be something that you can have and be able to iterate on and change and move around. And again, the main story is what you're trying to do. And if something works for it, great.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But if it doesn't, you got to be able to chuck it and not think twice about it.
Yeah.
You can't be precious with it, you know? You don't want to be Gollum, you know, with a storyboard and be like, I'm precious. I got this beautiful drawing that I did. And like, why are you doing beautiful drawings in the first place? Because they're storyboard drawings. They're supposed to be fast, you know?
Yeah, it's fast and loose, right? Tell a story. Yeah, I find that a lot with my line of work too. As a, you know, like when you design an environment, it's the same. You know, like if it doesn't work, you have to kind of get used to throwing things out. Even though, you know, we try to hog on as many of the props as possible. If it doesn't work, doesn't aid your storytelling, just get rid of it. And I see a lot of my younger artists or my students are so afraid of throwing things away. They ended up just cluttering everything, you know, and that's when experience come in handy. Less is more, right? You just keep beating them with less is more, less is more. Does it tell the story? Does it serve the purpose? It doesn't. Get rid of it. You know, this is actually an exercise too. It took me a long time to get used to it, and not feeling attached. So I guess it's the same thing as when you get a feedback, you know, not to be too attached to your work, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can't be precious to the point that it stifles you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I was at a conference not long ago. We were doing live drawing with permanent markers on stage.
Right.
And, you know, we were doing fan art stuff for like a comic conventions. We're doing comic book characters.
Yeah.
Right. And I had my markers out and I was going to town. And my friend Dave came up to me afterward and he's like, hey, you know, like, how do you do the marker drawings like that? And it's like, do you want to know? You just have to be a cold-hearted jerk and not care. Like, you just can't care. You have to make your mark. Otherwise, if you're so like nervous and everything with the mark, you won't be able to draw with a marker. Because you just gotta go for it, right? You gotta get in there, do it. And it can't be anything that you are nervous or afraid about.
Yeah.
Right? You just have to kind of get in there and go.
That reminds me of my mentor. Once he told me to start with drawing a line on the piece of paper and then it will flow. And I was like, what's the line? You know, diagonal, vertical, you know? It just doesn't matter, just a line, even a dot. Just do it.
Well, it's like the Bilbo Baggins thing, right? Like it's a dangerous thing to step outside your front door, but because you never know where that step's going to take you.
Exactly. Oh, look at that. Stories coming along. All right. So we have a question. Basically, what places do you recommend besides Kickstarter to find funding for independent project? I think there's a Go. What's it called?
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. That's one. And what are the ones that I've seen a lot lately? Indiegogo's, Kickstarter. There's also GoFundMe. What else?
Patreon.
Patreon. Yes, Patreon is a very good one because you can post a lot of behind the scenes and different tiers as well. I have been, investigating Patreon for a while, and basically Patreon needs a little bit more work. Similarly with Indiegogo and Kickstarter as well, you need to have different tiers for your subscribers or people that's backing your projects. But I find Patreon is a lot easier because you can just upload a video of you maybe storyboarding or coming up with colors, And for me, I feel like the audience feel like this is some kind of behind the scenes perk that normal subscribers or normal people don't get if they pay extra, right? So I think that's a very good way to kickstart some funding for yourself, Pasha. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and a lot of people develop followings, and they get people interested in their project.
Yeah.
I think, one thing that you can do is, my friend Travis did this with his show. Travis Blaze and Arc, if you want to check it out. He just did his development online. People watched him make his show, and I think you have a lot of independent animation happening because just people want to do it and they want to make it happen. You have some of these indies that are coming out, like I don't know, games in games like Cuphead, that had the traditionally animated stuff, and that turned into a show eventually on Netflix. There's some other ones like The Legend of Vox Machina at Titmouse started as just a D&D stream for Critical Role. Just getting your story out there in some way, shape, or form. Comics, just those little short 60-second YouTube clips or whatever. That can become a thing for you.
Yeah, that could. I mean, I can't speak for that because I'm not very big on social media. I'm like one of those dinosaurs. I don't post anything on social media. It's just, yeah, I'm not a person that could keep up with social media. How many times do I have to, keep tab on what's happening on Facebook or Instagram? I don't even have a TikTok account. What else? Yeah, but I think Patreon and Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those are the few examples that, it's a nice platform to basically investigate and start thinking about. And also the suggestions from Mike, I think is pretty useful too. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
I think at the end of the day, really it comes down to, if you want to do it, do it. Find a way to do it. Find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to do it for you. You have to be your own motivated artist. That you have to be your own best advocate, right? Whether you do it through traditional funding, whether you do it through hey, I'm gonna try doing this thing. Mom and Dad, will you help me and see if I can, make a run of it? Do you want to, I don't want to encourage people to take out loans or dangerous, money lending things, but, just find a way.
There has to be a way. Where there's, what was the saying? When there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, that's 100% true. I wanted to say something. I kind of forgot already. What did I wanted to say? Getting old sucks.
That's what you wanted to say? Getting old sucks?
No, I just couldn't remember. Hopefully it'll come back to me. But oh yes. So during the pandemic, when a lot of people got laid off, and people were being restless because of lockdown, I've seen actually a couple of very good products that actually came out through the pandemic, when people working together across different countries to come up with a short film. And I thought that was actually really clever. When you're alone at home doing nothing, isn't it better to learn from each other and start make a product, you know? And I think there's a way, you know. I think like if there's a will, there's a way, you know. Find the people in the same position as you and say, hey, let's get together and make a short film, you know. The advice I got.
I mean, that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. My mentor basically told me, I said, I'm not a rich person. I don't have a lot of funding and I don't know what to do, but I have this story I really want to do. But at the same time, I'm also teaching other people. So I'm encouraging, how about instead of me teaching the traditional classroom way, why don't we make a film together? That way I can also teach filmmaking in a way, right? So so that's my experiment, and that's what I'm going through right now. And so far it's very slow because I do have a full-time job and other side hustles as well. Finding time is very important. It's the crucial part. And I think we all need to be aware that if you want to do something like this, you need to put some time in a week to basically focus on that. It could be 10% or 15%. Go slow and steady. I think that's the right word that my mentor was telling me. Don't go too fast, because otherwise you're going to end up burning out too, you know, which is another topic for another day. So Mike, there's another question from an audience for you. What is the best length for pilot animatic?
I don't think there's a best length. I think there is a length that is appropriate for your story. I think that a lot of standardized stuff for broadcast ends up being 7 or 11. But there's also 3. Whatever you can manage to do, I think. It's in the independent space, there isn't like a right or a wrong.
Yeah.
And I know that's like sort of challenging for some people. Like they just want, just tell me the answer. But when there is no answer, it's kind of hard to tell you the answer. And of course, you know, right now I'm doing sort of derpy drawings as a way to kind of get this done. But there is really no right or wrong answer as to the length of a pilot or the length of anything. If you're trying to pitch it to a studio or something like that, then I would say probably try 7. Go for 7 minutes. That seems to be a pretty standard length for a lot of shows.
Yeah, hope that answers your question, Pasha. Now here's a personal question for you. What project are you most proud of and why?
What project am I most proud of? I'm proud of a lot of different projects. I am very proud of Animation Dance Party, which is an event that we've done with Toon Boom and Wacom and a few other sponsors before, and that is always a lot of fun to do. Speaking of independent animation, that's one of mine, and we got a lot of people come in and do dance cycles, and we compiled them all into one place, made a film out of it, and it was really fantastic to see everyone's everyone's take on a dance cycle. Different characters, different dances, different everything, and I think that was really kind of great to work on something like that.
Yeah. And what was your most challenging project?
Oh gosh, my most challenging project. That's a good question. I remember working, well, there was a show that I worked on called Future Worm, which was really, really fun. But it was my first time directing. And so it was my first time being in a position of leadership, right? Because I was the storyboard supervisor, and then I directed some episodes. And so that was my first time being in a leadership role, and that was fairly challenging for me, just to navigate unfamiliar experiences.
Yeah.
But it was super fun. It was really fun.
I feel like every leadership role is challenging in its own way. You know, you're not only it's not only challenging creatively now, but it's also challenging technically, and also you have to think about the people working under you. So I always find myself thinking, how can I make my team have a better experience when working with me? You know? So do you have any tips for future leaders in the audience?
I feel like there's a couple of ways you can lead, and not all of them are good. Some are really good. I like to do an approach where I've helped my people feel appreciated. Right? You always want your crew to be on your side, right?
Right, 100%.
And it's not like I'm trying to manipulate them into doing whatever. It's just being nice. I mean, you don't have to be a jerk, and people then they want to produce for you. They want to make sure that they meet their deadlines because they don't want to, have to look you in the eye and be disappointing.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think it all comes down to ego as well? Sometimes, like when people get promoted too fast and they just don't have that sort of the challenge to learn, from being in a leadership position. Do you think that's the case?
With some people, I mean, everyone's different, right? I mean, some people take that sort of thing and let it just run wild on them. And their personalities change significantly, and they become, a little harder to work with than they used to, or maybe not as down to earth or approachable as they used to be. That gets hard, especially if they're your friend before, and then they're kind of like standoffish afterward.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of you kind of have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And be the boss that you need to be. So you can't be the buddy guy with everybody. But at the same time, you can't let that status go to your head. You know what I mean? You can't let it dictate everything that happens with you.
Yeah, there's a fine line between being professional and being a pain in the butt, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but, they say that money and power don't necessarily change you. They amplify what already existed. That's
true. I've heard that saying so many times. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's incumbent upon all of us just to be good, nice people, and not be the kind of people that are, terrible to begin with.
Yeah, because people remember who's been kind to you, who's been
kind to us. Do.
I remember who was kind to me and who supported me during the hardest or the lowest point of my life, but never would I remember the people who did nothing for me.
Well, I mean, or you do remember them, and then
you do remember them, and you avoid them.
Yeah, and then when it's time, and you're in a position of power, and they're the one that's like kind of coming to you for a job or whatever like that, and shoes on the other foot, then I guess you have the opportunity to show what you're made of.
That's very true.
Whether or not you're just going to ghost that person and be terrible yourself, or be nice the way that you wanted to be treated.
Yeah.
But again, that all comes down to personality and just you as a person.
Yeah, and also experience as well. I think a lot of the time experience do humble people, and I think I was being thrown into a leadership position, like I know that for a long time I wanted to try to be in leadership, creative leadership, but there's only so much training out there for you, right? So you have to learn from your mistakes and learn to listen. I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of people, learn to listen. It's like, because sometimes it's not about you, you know, when you actually the captain of a ship, you need to listen to your crew, right? So your crew has the eyes on most of the things that's happening, and you're the captain, you're just steering the ship.
Yep.
So I learned to listen a lot to my crew, what actually doesn't work. And, you know, my job is to break it, make it work, and hopefully we get to the same destination in one piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think just some subtle guidance half the time is something that you need to think about. You know, everybody is in a different place in their artistic journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got their own challenges. Everybody's got their own stuff. Even life challenges that pop up, you know, like I've got a board due, but the house that I'm renting, someone's selling it, so I have to move out.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's kind of a messy thing that we call life, and we navigate it as best we can. But I think a lot of the time, if we can navigate it with a certain amount of humility and kindness.
Yeah. I think one advice that my parent gave me was, even if I'm a CEO of a company, I should walk the same level as the people working for me or with me. And I think that itself has a lot of meaning. It got me thinking a lot as well. You know, just because my title is different doesn't mean that I'm a different person. You know, I started somewhere. I started in the same position as most of the people that's working on the same level, you know. So being humble and being kind to people is so important, you know. And I think, just like you said, being kind, being nice, because you never know who's going to hire you in the future.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of videos and stuff we see online all the time about like, oh, someone was mean to somebody else, and then you realize that they're the person that you're going to be interviewing with later, and you know, after you bawled them out at the coffee shop because you were late for an interview or whatever like that, you realize, oh crap, I should have been nice, you know.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. The instant karma isn't always something that's going to happen to you. But at the same time, like, I think it's just a good practice just to cultivate the kindness that you have.
Yeah, and kindness is infectious, by the way. So if one person being kind, another person will start being kind too.
And I've worked in places where you know, there was sort of like a false sense of kindness,
right?
Where people would be nice to you to your face, and then you're like, oh, that guy's an idiot, you know, whatever.
Oh, no.
After the fact. And it always has a way of kind of coming out eventually, where people, like, you know, that you find out what they really think of you or whatever. Mm-hmm. And just don't do that. Yeah. Just be nice.
Yeah, that's very true.
Be nice. Be cool with people, and they'll be cool with you generally. I mean, troublemakers are going to happen, but on the whole, I really believe that people just want to be nice to everybody else and be treated nicely too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's actually very true. You know, like be the person you want people to treat you as, I guess. Is that the way of saying it? Yeah.
Well, the whole golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right?
Exactly. And it actually doesn't take a lot to be kind, you know, like it actually takes a lot of effort to be mean to people.
I think going back to that too, with, you know, coming back to independent animation, you know, who is it that you're going to be making independent films with, if not your friends?
Exactly.
Right? Or people that you've worked with and been like, hey, I don't know how many times that I've been like, you know, hey, you know, friend that I met from work like forever ago, do you want to come down and do a show with me at Ontario Comic-Con Revolution or something like that?
Yeah.
And what's going to happen if you invite somebody and then they're like, oh, well, I'm busy. Actually, I'm not busy. That guy's just a jerk and I hate him. You know? Like, how are you going to get stuff done if you don't have some backup from people that you like and like you.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is actually very true. And on the other hand, it's like no matter how nice you are to people, there's gonna be people who doesn't like you for their obvious reason. Learn to ignore them, you know? So okay, I have a last question for you from Chris. If by chance an independent pilot is picked up by a studio for a season, how is the creator paid? Do you just the rights for a lump sum or stay as a showrunner and make money if there's a profit?
That is up to a negotiation, sir. You have to negotiate for your own self. You have to. Often it's the duty of a manager or an agent to make those kind of deals with you or with studios. Yeah. Because studios are going to want to own everything that you do, right? They're going to want to own the IP. They're going to want to own everything. They're going to pay you X amount of dollars to option it. And at the end of the day, they're going to own the creation, right? But how much you get paid and whether or not you even get to stay on the show as the creator and showrunner, I mean, that doesn't always happen. That's a matter for what you can negotiate personally. And there is no real set pay. It's kind of just what you can get out of them.
I think once you get to that stage, it's best to get legal advice as well. Like seeing what you're signing up to or selling or, handing over to the studio. I've seen a lot of production became a mess because of that. And people just suddenly quit or being replaced because of that. I think finding a legal advice would be the best chance and option that you have, I would say. Yeah.
Having a good entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, studios have been at this for a long time.
Yes.
They know exactly what they're doing. And they know how to get stuff out of people, right? So I think it is incumbent upon us as artists to know how to negotiate and be allied with people that know the business well enough to be able to negotiate on your behalf.
Right. Okay. I just got a message that we are running out of time. Mike, can we play the animatics for our audience?
Okay, I've got one more shot. One more shot.
Any last minute questions? Now's the time to ask.
Yes. Any last minute questions?
Wow, this has been very fun and insightful.
Good. Was that you saying it or was that a comment?
That's me saying. It's also a comment from me.
Also a comment from you.
Let me ask you this. What advice would you give to your younger self when you were just starting out in animation?
Finish more projects. Don't just start them and not finish them.
Yeah, that's a valid answer. Because I find myself doing that a lot too. I would start a lot of things and then they just stay there because I found another idea or doing another IP. So yeah, stick to your project. Get it done.
Yep. Stick to a project, get it done, and then move on from there. Don't take on too many things and know your own limitations. I mean, I'm a compulsive overachiever.
Yes, you are.
It doesn't always work out.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have a habit of keep saying yes until I look at my calendar. It's like, when do I sleep? Oh. So what's your final board?
The final board is her pounding on these rats But lurking behind in the bushes is King Rat.
Disguised as a tree. That's clever.
It was all a setup the entire time. She's yelling at these rats, "Get away from my stuff!"
Does anybody have any last-minute question to ask Mike? Or any question about Storyboard Pro?
You know, I will say that we have over 35 episodes. We're coming in on 40 proper. I think we've actually done more than that if you count some of the, I don't know, special editions or whatever that we've done. But there is a library of episodes of the Collaboratory that you can go back and watch with a lot of different guest hosts and a lot of different information. And hopefully that you guys will be able to get even more out of the shows, either rewatching or watching the older shows for the first time. So if you liking what you see here with us storyboarding, this whole improv thing, you know, chatting, making jokes, and hanging out, then check out our library of previously recorded episodes on YouTube or here on Twitch, or I think we were also on Facebook Live or on Facebook. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But all right, here we go. Let's see how we started. Okay, so we start in a futuristic city. And panning over, we see a train going toward what looks like a spaceport. And the spaceport has a planet to outer a planetary ship that is blasting off. Interplanetary ship. Whoosh, takes off in the sky, and we see this cyborg girl just standing there looking up at it longingly. She looks at her wrist communicator. The launch schedule. There's only one launch left, and she sees her digital concert ticket. How in the world is she going to be able to go? One launch remaining. All right, it's time to go. Hurry up. She looks up, sees that launch, and goes back and actually, that shouldn't be there because that's a bad hookup. And all of a sudden, she hears some squeaking, and looking down, there's some rats trying to get into her backpack. And one of them hisses at her, and she's like, "Get away from my stuff, you filthy little vermin. I'm going to pound you good," you know. And she gets up and starts slamming down her cybernetic arms at them. Boom, 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 boom. And they move. And we see something, and we hear something breathing hard through the bushes. And some sort of gravelly, croaking, squealing breath. And then as she's, yelling at them, "My concert ticket's in there, and I'm not going to miss this show," we see rising from behind the bushes the giant king rat whose trap is about to spring.
That's a wonderful story. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Wow, I don't know what to say. This has been a pretty insightful experience for me as well. And talking to you, the legendary storyboard artist and the animation director, Mike Morris. Thank you for joining us once again for Collaboratory. Do you have any projects or topics that you would like to draw our attentions to? All right. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. If Mike could draw in 90 minutes, think about what you could draw in 3 weeks. You can download a 21-day trial of Storyboard Pro from our website at toonboom.com and find free video tutorials at learn.toonboom.com. And if you're looking for more interviews, be sure to visit blog.toonboom.com for articles about storyboarding, animation, and 2D games. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.